But this is, I wanted to quickly look at the results of the standard preliminary on stream here, because these are the only actual results we have from New Standard, like at all whatsoever. And honestly, these aren't discouraging because there's a lot of different decks in these results. But there's a lot more aggro than I thought, and the control decks that exist are not necessarily the ones that I thought would exist. So this is the deck. There are only 2 decks that went 4-1 in the prelim. That's it. The first one is Mono Red, which we predicted would be good. I've been saying that the Red Menace is back, Embercleave is a real card again, and all that. And we see that Mono Red has gone 4-1. It's probably the premier aggro deck in the format to beat. We don't know that just because of this one result. This isn't all the data in the world, so don't go crazy. But 4-1 is a pretty good benchmark for knowing how powerful this deck is, especially when this is a format where a lot of people are trying stuff out. So, if you're still trying stuff out, your deck's a little clunky, it's a little too synergy driven, you don't have the proper creature removal or answers in the early game, then you're just going to get dumpstered by a deck like this. So keep that in mind. Mono Red is back. As far as number 2 here, we see the Mardu Winoda deck. Yet another aggro deck, but this one a little bit more combo-y. Still tries to kill on turn 4, You play Winoda. You get a bunch of humans when your non-human swing. A lot of those humans that you're getting will pump the power toughness of other humans. So, you get a Judith off of a Winoda swing. You get a General Kudrow off of a Winoda swing. And like 2 other humans. And then suddenly, you're swinging for a whole bunch of damage and you're going to win. I played a little Mardu Winoda last night. And I don't hate the deck. I don't want to go that far. But like if you don't get Winoda on turn 4, it's nowhere near as good of a deck. It just kind of plays like Mardu humans. But you don't get to play humans early in the game. You get to play Raise the Alarm, Lazotep Reaver, and stuff. So, if you have to go Lazotep Reaver into General Kudrow, that feels really, really bad. And if you just don't draw Winoda by turn 4, the deck is like, you cut the power level of the deck by like 70%. So, I'm not sure how much I like this deck, but I definitely think that it's a cool deck. And if you do get Winoda, it's one of the most powerful decks in the format. And it might be really good in Best of 1 especially. Goblin Punch with the follow, I appreciate that. Let's move on to probably the deck that I'm most excited about in terms of like these results. Actually, it's another 4-1 list. There are 3 of them. I apologize for saying there were only 2. There were 3, and it's actually really hopeful that this Teamer Elementals deck went 4-1. This is probably the coolest deck that produced some results. I'm still not sure if Esper. I keep wanting to say Esper. I'm still not sure if Elementals is 100% real, but 4-1 is a very hopeful result, right? 4 Cavalier of Thorns in this deck, 4 Risen Reef, all that. And they're doing the thing that we were doing on stream the other night. They're playing 3 Terror of the Peaks and 2 Yorion Sky Nomad. Although I imagine in this deck where you get extra Risen Reef triggers and Cavalier of Thorns triggers, Yorion and Terror is probably an even better combination than it was in Jeskai last night. You'll probably draw a bunch of cards, I'll say that much, but I really like the look of this deck, like an awful lot, and I want to play this Elementals deck. The Genesis Ultimatum Elementals deck was already like trying to be a thing, a little bit, slightly, for a few weeks there before the bannings. So it had kind of faded into the background, maybe 2 weeks before the bannings actually happened, but hopefully it'll pop back up now, because I think this deck is really, 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 really cool. It is one of the most fun decks in the format to play if you like generating a ridiculous board state, drawing a bunch of cards, it's, God, Elementals is sweet, and it's only going to be around for another, 4 weeks, so probably play this while you can. But moving on to the first 3 and 2 deck, these are decks you can still take seriously because they had a winning record, but they're probably not as serious as 4-1. But again, this is one event, one batch of results. It's not a lot of data. But Joker got 3 and 2 with what is effectively a Simic Flash deck, but it's a really interesting Simic Flash deck. You got your usual suspects: Nightpack Ambusher, Frilled Mystic, Brineborn Cutthroat, Brazen Borrower. They play 4 whole copies of Rewind, which is not exactly typical. But they also play 4 Essence Scatter, which I thought was really smart, especially on the play. Essence Scatter looks really good in this format where everyone's trying to play aggro again. And mid-range for that matter. People are trying to make those 3 and 4 and 5 drop creatures work now that the way is paved a little bit more for them. There's no Teferi. And so Essence Scatter is a great way to capitalize on that. I think the play set is an interesting way to go. They also have 2 Sublime Epiphany in their deck, which is really interesting for a flash deck. Once you do get to 6 mana, Epiphany is just a pretty broken card most of the time, and a lot of these decks are going to get to the point in the game where they can play Epiphany, so why not run a couple of copies? It's probably really clunky if you get in your opener, but if you can ever resolve it, it's a dumb card. And they've also got Paradise Druid, which I was a little confused by. Because I guess you can ramp into Sublime Epiphany, you can ramp into a big Shark Typhoon or something. But Paradise Druid is maybe the one card in the deck that stands out as like maybe being exchangeable with something else. Lofty Denial, another counter spell, maybe, something like that. A lot of people are up on Sultai Flash right now because you get to play removal. So you could do that and squeeze in Eliminate or something like that. But I think I'd rather go 2 colors just to keep the deck as consistent as possible. So I think Simic is the way to go because I want to play Frilled Mystic and Nightpack Ambusher. They're playing 4 copies for a good reason. They're the 2 best cards in the deck. So I'd probably go Simic here. I can't be too sure that Paradise Druid is the exact right card for that spot, but I imagine turn 5 Epiphany is way better than turn 6 Epiphany. It's not even guaranteed you get it on like turn 6 because you have to hit every land drop to do that. And that's not going to happen in a 24 land deck. So, any ramp to Epiphany is good. Plus, it's a creature that can, block if it needs to. It can attack if it needs to. It can get you to Nightpack Ambusher a turn early, which is probably important. Frilled Mystic a turn early, that's probably important. So I probably shouldn't be like too down on Paradise Druid. It probably works fine, but I knew Simic Flash was going to show up. I just expected it to be one of the 4-in-1s rather than the 3-in-2. But Simic Flash is definitely a very strong deck in this format. I don't think it's a controversial statement. But moving on, we got one of the other pretty interesting decks from the day. This is a Cavalcade of Calamity deck. I expected Mono Red to be back, but mostly because of like Embercleave, and like Torbrand's good again now, all that stuff. But no, this deck doesn't play those. Well, it plays Torbrand, but it doesn't play Embercleave. Appreciate the follow. Banksy was here. Oh my God, is it Banksy? Oh, is Banksy following us? That'd be an honor. But anyway, this deck is really interesting, but I just don't know if it's real. I never know if Cavalcade is real, which is weird coming from me, because I've done like 2 videos with budget Cavalcade of Calamity decks that got like, twice as many views as normal videos. People love Cavalcade. It's a really budget, fun deck to play, and I guess you can make an argument it's better in a format with no Teferi, because if you played Cavalcade on turn 2, missed playing a 2-drop creature to play Cavalcade instead, and they went and played Teferi to bounce your Cavalcade, that's it feels really, really bad, and that's like never going to happen again. So Cavalcade probably is better just as a factor of that, but I think I'd rather just play Mono Red than Cavalcade, all things considered. But this might be the reachier deck, with fewer sweepers in the format and stuff, fewer Shatter the Sky. There seems to be a lot less white in the format, which means there's a lot less Shatter the Sky. So maybe a deck like this is a little bit safer to play, but who knows. But then again, in this deck, you don't get Anax to protect from Shatter when you do see it. So I don't know. If I had to pick, I'd probably take, normal, I guess quote-unquote normal Mono Red would be my pick. But moving on to the other 3-2 decks. This is the Sultai deck that showed up. I knew there was a Sultai deck in this list. We see again main deck Ether Gust that hasn't gone out of style, and it probably won't while this format's a thing. Main deck Ether Gust, even in best of 1, can be a thing that people do. All 4 copies of Eliminate. I'm a little surprised that we don't see more stuff in here for taking out Winoda at instant speed. If I was building Sultai, I'd probably split Eliminate with like a copy or 2 of Heartless Act, which I think is better than Grasp in a 3-color deck, Grasp of Darkness. But Heartless Act can at least take out Winoda when she hits the board. That's going to be important. But see all 4 eliminates here. A Narset, it's kind of an interesting call. 2 blue might be tough to get on turn 3, but Narset's probably worth it. But yeah, just good stuff. Nissa, Ugin, Hydroid Krasis, Euro, Casualties, Cultivate to get to that big stuff. Extinction Event is a sweeper, and then Thought Erasure in the early game. It's just Sultai. Just Sultai stuff. It's a good deck. It's always going to be a good deck. I have a lot of confidence in Sultai. I really do, but I'm really interested in like an Esper control deck, or maybe just even blue-white. I know it sounds crazy because there's no Teferi, but I think blue-white might be a deck. Still, just a blue-white like draw go. That's the thing about Teferi is that like it costs 3 mana on turn 3, so that means you're probably going to be playing tap-out control rather than draw go, and I think draw go has a chance to be a deck again in this format. But we knew Sultai was going to be here. It's got threats and removal, just the best threats and the best removal, so it's here. But another 3-2 deck. This is Mono Black Aggro. Again, it shows up, all the Demonic Embraces, all the Rotting Regisars. Actually, no, it's only got 2 Rotting Regisars. Ooh, that's spicy. What did you put in? Okay, so rather than 4 Rotting Regisars, they have used 2 Murderous Riders. You don't often see that in this deck, but I guess Murderous Rider got a little bit better. Teferi's gone, so you can play Murderous Rider at instant speed. They also play 4 Kite Sail freebooters. A lot of these decks will play either 0 or 2 Kite Sail freebooters. They went all the way up to 4, so it's just really surprising. Riding Regisar with a Demonic Embrace on it is known as the best play in the deck. It's kind of the play the deck is known by, so a little surprising to see Regisar, but you've got Spawn of Mayhem, you got Rankle in the deck, so you don't want to discard those to Regisar. On the other hand, that's one of the cool things about Embrace is that you can discard Embrace to Riding Regisar. And it's kind of like not actually discarding it because you just play it out of your yard. So, a little surprised by that. That is a little bit spicy, but they've gone with 2 Murderous Rider rather than 4 Riding Regisar. So, that's kind of cool. But yeah, Mono Black still showing up. It's a good aggro deck in this format. But I think Mono Black might, let me go back up. I think Mono Black might get pushed out here just because I think Mono Red is probably better. It probably just is better. I'd like to see the matchup, how they play against one another. I'd like to see that. But all the times I played Mono Black, I really haven't run up against much Mono Red. Now, here's, is this another? Yeah, it's another Sultai deck. I told you, people are going to be trying to make this work. They did the one Heartless Act in this list. Probably, again, for Winoda and other creatures like that. You have to take out immediately. So, also people are trying to make, like, Elder Gargaroth work and stuff like that. You're going to run up against, like, more 5-drop creatures. Terror of the Peaks is in this format again. So Eliminate really isn't going to do all the heavy lifting. You need something like Heartless Act that can take those creatures out. So I like that. I like that pick. Just one Ugin the Spirit Dragon in this Sultai list. I don't think you probably don't need to play more than one main deck. A couple of Pelucranos so you can play out of the graveyard along with the Euros. 3 Casualties, 2 only 2 Cultivate in this one. 3 Extinction Event rather than 2. So see how the numbers are different in all the Sultai decks? But the cards, the actual card choices are mostly the same. But again, the numbers are different. And that's what's interesting about Sultai. There's a lot of different ways to build it. That's why I think it's going to be an important deck. And then Mutate. Yeah, okay. I saw a couple of people at the beginning of this segment here talking about Mutate. I do want to talk about Mutate. I think that Mutate is a lot better than it was. I mean, definitely a lot better than it was. And this person also thought so. So what they did was they built a Simic Mutate thing, right? But it's just Simic. Just 2 colors. We're going to stay as consistent as possible. A lot of times you'll see Sultai mutate. That's a thing. But I guess they decided that like Dirge Bat and Insatiable Hemophage and all that were just not good enough cards. And honestly, I agree with that. I think that if you're going to play Mutate, just focus on the best cards. And the best cards in Mutate are Auspicious Sterix, easily, Gem Razor, Migratory Greathorn. There are others. Pouncing Shore Shark is a pretty decent card. Polywalk Symbiote is a card you absolutely have to play. But ultimately, I think this is maybe the best way you could build Mutate right now. I really do. I have never seen this art for Gilded Goose. Oh my god, I love that. I have never seen that in my life. But anyway, I do like this build a good bit because it's kind of a tempo deck. It's kind of a ramp deck. You get your ramp off Grazer in the early game. You kind of get your ramp off of Polywalk Symbiote and Paradise Druid. But of course, Paradise Druid is what you want to mutate onto because it has hexproof. So there's that. And then, you get a little tempo with Pouncing Shore Shark. Later on, you can kill something with Gem Razor if they're, relying on those kind of permanents. Auspicious Sterix will put like 5 things into play. I like the Mutate deck, but usually a lot of things have to go right. You have to get Paradise Druid on turn 2 if you're going to really play the Mutate deck to its, full potential. And that's easier said than done. But upon rotation, we probably won't have like a 2-drop hexproof creature anymore. So I don't think Mutate's going to be very good after rotation unless they put like Invisible Stalker. Can you imagine? Oh, can you imagine if they put Invisible Stalker in the next set? My god. In case you have not seen this Magic card. That's odd. Give me the Gathering. Yeah, give me the Gatherer intro for it. That's so weird. Yeah, 2-mana hexproof unblockable. That's a pretty... Can you freaking imagine if we had Invisible Stalker with Mutate? God. But yeah, if we don't get another 2-mana hexproof dude, I think Mutate's just cooked when the format rotates. But for now, I think because of Paradise Druid, Mutate could be a very, very good deck, as a matter of fact. I saw somebody mention a Mardu Mutate. I don't think that that's great. There's just not... You don't have a Paradise Druid in Mardu Mutate. You don't. You do have cards like God's Willing, I guess. Stuff like Fight as One. To give them indestructible or protection from a color at instant speed, but it costs mana, it costs a card in your hand. I'd just rather have the hexproof cooked into the creature naturally, and Mardu doesn't have that. I really would like to make Snapdax work. Snapdax is such a powerful looking card to me, and I'd like to make it work. But, you know, in terms of mutating stuff, I think for the time being, you just got to play green. You got to play green. Maybe an Abzan Mutate deck could work, because I think you just need black and white to mutate Snapdax. I don't think you need the red mana for the mutate cost. So maybe Abzan Mutate, but you really want to be getting to, like, Sterix on turn 4, you know? If you can help it. You want to go like Paradise Druid into Migratory Greathorn into Sterix. If you can do that. But just mutate, slightly a disappointing result, but at least it's in the result. You know, it's not a deck that went 1-4 or whatever. It didn't do that. Mutate showed up. So, you know, it might actually be a real deck, and I'm kind of hoping that it is. It's a deck that I didn't get to cover on the video where I talked about, you know, the best stuff during this time period. But I do think that Mutate has a shot. I really do. But what have y'all been saying over here? It's a secret lair. Yeah, the Gilded Goose. I think it is too. I think it is. No Flash Octopus. Yeah, I found that a little strange too. That they didn't play Sea Dasher Octopus. But I guess you don't have to. I mean, what do you take out for Sea Dasher in this list? Nothing. Maybe take out one Grazer. But I've seen lists that play 4 Enrage 4 runners, and this list only plays 3 Enrage 4 runners. So, I mean, I could, if you cut a card, you want to play Enrage, probably. I've seen lists that play 4 Gilded Goose, so it's such a tight list that I don't know what you take out for Sea Dasher. Not sure. Mutate Greater Than Adventures? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. I know a lot of people have high hopes for Teamer Adventures, myself included, and a lot of pros too. But there's definitely a lack of Teamer Adventures in these results, which surprises me. But I think Teamer Adventures is absolutely a real deck in this format. First time catching the stream, Eric477. I appreciate you. You're awesome for coming by. Yeah, right now, we're going to play some more Magic in a second. But right now, we're just kind of analyzing the results of the first standard preliminary since the bannings to see what's up. We got a lot of aggro in there, a couple of Soul Tide decks, this Mutate deck, a Flash deck. So there's a fair amount of diversity, but I do think aggro is still king right now. But let's get back to playing some Magic, ladies and gentlemen.